Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 27th of December. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this morning by Jonny McFarlane. Jonny, how are we doing this Monday morning?
Yeah, not bad. Getting over COVID finally. So if I sound a little bit rough and tumble, then you probably that's what it is. So yeah, but on the mend now, Derek. Feeling a little bit better and looking forward to chatting about football. It's been a while since I've been on one of these videos, actually. I think it's over a week, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Good to see you soldiering on. Only one thing to talk about then, Jonny, was it was great to have a game yesterday, albeit without fans, pretty much only 500 spectators allowed inside at Ibrox yesterday.
Yeah.
But they were treated to a really fabulous performance. Perhaps maybe they should have scored more goals in the second half, but Rangers were dominant as they beat St Mirren by 2-0. The goals coming in the first half from a Scott Wright header from a corner and also from Alfredo Morelos from close range. Rangers were terrific yesterday, Jonny. St Mirren never laid a glove. I know they've had COVID issues themselves, but they never really tested Alan McGregor in any way, shape or form. And it was almost a complete performance, you could say.
Yeah, I thought Rangers were absolutely irresistible yesterday. What a treat to serve up for Christmas for the fans. The best performance in terms of just a brisk and cheerful readiness about their play since Giovanni van Bronckhorst arrived. And I think that was especially pleasing given the fact that they looked a little bit sticky in the last game. You know, it had been a bit of a tough one, and they struggled a wee bit. So we got there in the end, obviously, but nonetheless, hadn't been a brilliant performance. So bounced back with what was just irresistible to watch. 25 shots on goal, expected goals 3.19 to St Mirren's astonishing 0.07. I mean, St Mirren didn't have a shot on target in the game. They were completely suffocated every time they got the ball and tried to pass it out. Rangers were on top of them. They only had 157 passes in the game.
Yeah.
So it just shows you how dominant Rangers were from beginning to end. You could talk about the individual performances. There was loads of good ones. But for me, so much credit has to go to Giovanni van Bronckhorst. It's remarkable. It is actually remarkable the impact this guy has had on Rangers. I mean, I wrote a couple of weeks ago that Rangers look better with Stevie G. And I've got to be under Giovanni van Bronckhorst, and they did under Stevie G. And I've got to be honest, I was a little bit worried because I was thinking to myself, that's a bold statement. It's early doors. I don't think anyone's saying that's bold now. Rangers just look like they're a lot more. I think the word's just liberated. They just
they look reinvigorated, I think.
Reinvigorated, sparky. And that's down to the manager. Listen, Derek, you know, you've got to be honest and say, a new manager coming in, I thought they'd be dropped points.
Yeah.
It's outstanding what he's achieved since he came in because new guy, new philosophy, new ideas. Okay, it's the same formation, but it's very, very different. And there's lots of differences. And you could see yesterday the fullbacks taking up inverted positions without getting too geeky about it. Not only were they overlapping, they were underlapping. And there's a lot going on in this formation, not least actually getting creative players like Scott Wright and Ryan Kent in creative positions. And what a difference that makes.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that, because the teams were announced, and I must say I was happy to see Scott Wright get a start. I felt he changed the game against Dundee United a week ago, and he was fully deserving of the start on that right-hand side, and I think named man of the match as well. I think he done very well. Sometimes his final ball, I think that's the one sort of slight on his game just now, Jonny. I think his final ball can be a bit better, but certainly on that right-hand side, he offers so much more than Yanis Hadji, who I felt did well in that central area. That is his position. He said it himself, of course, as well. But for me, it's Scott Wright's position on that right-hand side for me.
Yeah, listen, the way Giovanni van Bronckhorst plays, I just don't think it suits Yanis Hadji in the wide area. He's he's a number 10 or he's a central midfield player. That's where his skill set is. He's not quick. He's not going to beat a man out there and then get a cross in very often. I mean, he's got it in his locker. He's capable of it. But is he the guy that's going to do that consistently? I don't think so. I think Scott Wright is much more suited to that role. And there's all sorts of problems with Scott Wright's game. But he has the basic elements to be a really, really top player. He's so quick. He's so direct. And, I think he's got the right team there to ensure that he becomes a really, really top player. Yeah. I mean, the Dutch coaches and their wingers, that's a sort of match made in heaven. We remember it well with Advocaat. Neil McCann coming in from Hearts was turned into a legend. We had Andrew Kanchelskis at Ibrox back in those days. Really, really top class wingers who used to brighten the stadium up. And I think it's going to be the same here. You just look at the positions. They're the most important players in the team.
Yeah. I like this question that's come in, Jonny, from CGM 55. So the $64 million question has to be asked. Did we look better again without fans? I felt they looked relaxed without supporters. There was something reassuring for them in it. How did you feel about that, Jonny? I mean, it's not the same. It's nowhere near the same what you would have liked at Ibrox. I mean, we've seen it last season. Rangers coped without the supporters, and they just looked a level above any team they came up against. What did you make of it yesterday without the supporters in the ground?
Yeah, well, obviously it's a negative that you don't have fans in the ground, but it's about professionalism and how you approach it. I mean, across the city, you've got Ange Postecoglou, who I respect. I think has done a very, very good job over there at Celtic. But he's getting sort of furious in the press after the game about there not being fans in and barking at a question and really underlining, I don't like games without fans. I don't think that's a very smart strategy. I've got to be honest, Derek, because it's about it's a psychological thing at this point.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of games over the next few weeks without fans. And I think that the psychological process that you have to go through as a player, what you want to be told is everything's fine, everything's all right, everything's like normal. We just continue the way we're doing it. There's just no fans there. No, this is a huge thing. This suffocates our entire club. This, I found that really a strange route for Postecoglou to go down, and one that probably might bring up memories of last season. Whereas at Rangers, it's just very much like, yeah, okay, there's no fans there. We were unbeaten last season with no fans around. We'll continue to go down the same route and the same performance levels that we did last season, and it all clicks back into gear. Listen, there's all sorts of theories about this. Ibrox, no doubt about it, very demanding stadium for players. Glenn Kamara yesterday I thought was superb, but there was a moment he goes past the player, he's moving the ball back the way, he sees a pass across to Connor Goldson, goes for this sort of crossfield pass and completely gets it wrong, plays it straight to opposition player. I can't remember, sorry.
Jay Henderson, I think it was.
Was it Henderson? Yeah, right, okay. Now, I know that if 50,000 people had been in Ibrox, there would have been a collective 50,000 person groan. And that's fine. That's the way. That is one of the best things about Ibrox, is that there's no standing on ceremony about what's accepted and what's not accepted. And very, very good players have been sort of cut down to size, and that makes players stand tall, and that means that only the best survive in terms of their psychology. But at the same time, for a player like Glenn Kamara making a mistake like that, when there's no fans in, you just go, all right, next, I'll move on to the next one. There's no psychological battle at play. It's just... So in some ways, when there's moments like that, it makes it a bit easier for them. But at the same time, look, you remember Braga? Rangers 2-0 down? Were the crowd a help that day? Of course they were.
Yeah.
So everything's a balance. But I think the thing that Giovanni van Bronckhorst has been correct to do is to just temper it all down, keep it all calm. Let's not get involved in making this a bigger thing than it is. And Derek, no one's talking about this. This is the first time I've talked about this. I've been thinking about it for the last few days. It's just, I think it's a barking strategy from across the city, and I really do think that this is a real opportunity for Rangers to have a sort of no excuses outlook.
Yeah.
We're just going to win all these games because they've already had an excuse provided for them.
Yeah. Well, I quite liked Van Bronckhorst's response when I asked him about the possibility, of course, with the rearranged fixtures of losing key players. Joe Rebo and Leon Balogun called up to the Nigeria squad for the African Cup of Nations, and he simply says, we'll just get on with it. Frustration is not the word. It's just part of management, which I liked. It's not something that's coming into his psyche. He'll just cope with whatever player he has at his disposal when that time comes around. So it was good to hear that from Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, and it is a case of, like you say, just getting on with things.
He's just a class act, the way he handles himself, Van Bronckhorst. There's no doubt about it. He's got that mix of kind of cool, calm, and collected, but a lovely Dutch arrogance.
Yeah,
and I mean that in the best possible way. Just sheer confidence in himself and what he's saying and his own ability. And I remember that back in the 90s and early 2000s from the players that were coming in under Advocaat. They just had that kind of that real confidence about them. And listen, Dutch people in general, without being stereotypical about it, the Dutch people I've met in my life tend to be, kind of confident, gregarious, not exactly slow to give you their opinion types. Which is why I've got to say I love Dutch people. I think they're great. So. That's just part of their culture, I think, in a lot of ways. And Giovanni, I don't think he's bombastic in the way maybe Gerrard could be at times. I'm sure he's got that in his locker, but I think he's a much calmer presence at press conferences. There's not that sort of intensity there where you're like, oh, Gerrard. It's a completely different kettle of fish. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree, and I think that may have had an impact on the upturn in performances in different players as well. One of those players being Alfredo Morelos, Jonny. The turnaround in him has been crazy. He looks leaner. There's a smile on his face. He's banging goals in for fun. He scored again yesterday. What's that, 6 and 8 games or something like that? It seems to be back to the old vintage Morelos. What do you think that's down to? Is it maybe Roy Mackay and Van Bronckhorst being able to speak Spanish is having an impact? What do you put it down to?
I mean, it would be speculation at the moment, but it's one of two things. They've either got inside his head and it's psychological, or it's physical and they've got him to lose weight, because there's no doubt for me, he looks a lot, he's running about a lot more, he's chasing back a lot more. He looks a much more interested player. Maybe it's a combination of the two things, Derek. It's hard because there's a propensity for people watching football to say, oh, he looks like he's put on a few pounds and he looks quite chunky and all that. And then you meet these guys in real life. I always remember, having watched Chris Boyd for many years and thought he looked a bit chunky. And then as a journalist, finally meeting him and going, yeah, this guy has not got an ounce of fat on him. Like he really, I mean, he's life,
Yeah.
Especially compared to me, for God's sake. I stand next to him, he looks like a beanpole. So yeah, I think there's a danger sometimes in that, but there's no doubt Morelos did look a little chunky for a professional footballer. But I mean, if he's lost weight or not, I don't know. But he just looks a completely different player. He looks back to that guy who we were talking about being a potential £20 million player.
Yeah.
And like, long may that continue, because Rangers without Alfredo Morelos in that form are not the same team. Yeah. So I've got to hold my hands up, Derek. I mean, I was very, very critical of him, as I think many fans were over the last maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
But under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, he deserves a lot of praise, because he really, really has looked like a guy who's much more comfortable in the role that he's been asked to play. And I think as well, and I don't know if you agree, I think he's getting better game by game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, it's great to see at the moment. And he could have had more goals. I know someone commented there, he could have had more goals yesterday, but he's getting in those positions now. And It's only a matter of time before he adds more to his goal tally. The only thing is, Clive Tilsley mentioned on Rangers TV yesterday that Colombia have a game with Argentina coming up next month, which would clash with the Old Firm game. You just hope that they've got enough in their arsenal not to call in Alfredo if he keeps this scoring run going. There's an interesting question here from Kirsty Radford. Just wanted to bring up, Jonny, before we go. Can we add in January? And even more importantly, can we keep our stars? She says, fingers crossed. Do you think there'll be business done in January, Jonny?
I hope so. And I mean, I think it's really important that Rangers start to sell some of these big players. And nobody would want to lose a Ryan Kent or a Joe Aribo. But I think it would be very good for the club to get maybe a £20 million transfer fee in the back pocket, especially given the situation with stadiums and things like that. So I would not be surprised if there was a bit of movement. We've now got Steven Gerrard in at Aston Villa, who knows how good all these players are. He's obviously got a good team down there, but there may be some players that he might be interested in. He's aware that in terms of shopping in a market where you can get value, you'll get very, very good value at Rangers. You know, I think Ryan Kent, for example, how much would he be worth? Certainly, I would imagine, and I'm just guessing here, if a £20 million bid came in for Ryan Kent, Rangers would snap Aston Villa's hands off. But what kind of player would you get for 20 million if you were trying to buy someone in the English Premier League? You know, would you get a player of Ryan Kent's quality? I'm not sure you would. So that's the point I'm trying to make. There's quality there. He knows them. On top of that, you've got other people down there who will be looking at trying to find players for a reasonable price. They've seen them in Europa League over 2 or 3 seasons now, so they know that they can do it at a reasonable level. And I think that Rangers should be the kind of team that should benefit from that. But listen, it all depends on how much COVID is strangling the market. Yeah. We've seen in the last 2 markets that between 5 million and 20 million, there just hasn't been the money there to make the purchases. You've got hope that that's starting to ease now, and you'll start to see some movement. Because I think it is very important that Rangers sell a player of some sort at some point. You know, this is part of the 4 pillars of the club's strategy going forward, is to sell a player every season. And, you know, while, again, you wouldn't want to see one of the key players go, I think Rangers have got an awful lot in their locker. And if it means they can go out and spend £5 million on a player to replace someone that they've let out the door, I don't see that as being a big deal, to be honest, Eric. I've got to be honest. In terms of players coming in, I think there needs to be a little bit of work done in the balance of the midfield. I don't think, you know, Stephen Davis, John Lundstrom and Glenn Kamara all vying for one spot. Is that it's going to last for too long? I don't think, you know, Lundstrom, for example, is he going to be happy being sort of third choice in that position? Having come in as a major sign-in, it's just not really worked out for him, I don't think, at the moment. So would he be someone that would go out on loan? At the same time, would Rangers like to buy another or get in someone who can go box to box? So it's not just Arfield and Aribo they've got there, so they've got other options. And, you know, is it possible to get another right winger in there? So there's a lot of, I think, important discussion points for Ross Wilson and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst to drill into the detail of.
Yeah.
But it'll all depend, Derek, on who comes in with offers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there'll be a number of players linked with the club, there's no doubt about it. One of those is the young Spanish midfielder, 18-year-old Pablo Tor from Racing Santander. Now, Joshua has done a great scouting piece on him, folks. If you go over to the Ranger Review website, you can have a look in greater detail at him. He's doing really well for his club in Spain at the moment, so you can go and check that out. But he'll be one of a number of players that will be linked with Rangers in next month in the January transfer window. There's no doubt about it. Okay, Jonny, that'll do us here. Thanks very much as always. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you haven't already done so, just hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a video when we go live. And also subscribe to the Rangers Review website itself to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow.